Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your headliner, Mate Olson.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Well, okay. So I was buying some bread today and I was checking the dates and I was thinking, I don't really know what day it is. Yeah, later in the day, I found myself at Taco Bell. I was reading a sign that said, download the app and skip the line. And I was looking around. I was like, there's nobody in here. I have an acid reducer pill, and I take it down with a shot of whiskey. And I just sit back and let them fight. Pretty sick of these babies dressing better than me. It's like, you have a leather jacket? What are you, like 5? Do you know how much I want that? On the side, I do a little video editing, and I use Final Cut Pro. And every now and then, there's something that I don't know how to do. So I have to go onto YouTube, and I have to find out a tutorial. And almost all the time, it's a toddler. It's like a 10-year-old boy. So what you want to do is grab the drop frame, drag it above your clip, and now it's permanently attached. Like, fucking great. Has anyone caught the new Beatles documentary on Disney about Let It Be? They record their album Let It Be, and it's actually really magical. It's like a magician showing you how the trick is done. It's really valuable. But I saw another documentary, and it's called Scatter My Ashes at Bergdorf's, 2013. It's another documentary, and it's about department stores in New York City. And John Lennon was a huge fur fan. He loved fur coats. And in fact, he bought all the fur coats at Bergdorf's. He bought so many furs that he had to have an apartment, like a unit built on his apartment, to store all the fur with an air conditioner and the whole thing. So the Beatles' message of like love and peace, to mankind. But then again, these fucking animals must pay. I think it's time for a Beatles reenactment porn, and we could call it Come Together right now. I love Elvis Presley. He's the king of rock and roll. Could you imagine going into a recording studio today and being like, the recording engineer would be like, what the fuck is your problem? One of my all-time least favorite things is when DJs are like, I can't hear you. If a DJ, to get the crowd amped up, they'll say, I can't hear you. If you say I can't hear you twice, it's probably because I've left. I have a voice recording app on my phone that forces you to watch a commercial before you hear your recording back. It's like I just wanted to record a fart, but I guess I'll buy a Toyota Tundra, And this is true. I was going truck shopping recently, and the salesperson kept showing me all these monster trucks. These like huge F-150, like raised trucks. At some point said to the salesperson, I was like, okay, look, let's say I have a normal sized wiener. Do you have any of those trucks? Like, I don't need to compensate for anything. Do you have any of that in stock? I've had a lot of jobs. I've had a lot of shitty jobs. You can see it on my face. Look at me. My boss, I asked one of my bosses at some point, I was like, what did you guys do before the internet? And he was like, we just worked. Wow. Okay. People always want to remember the worst parts about you. I ran into an old friend recently, and he was like, hey, Nate, you still working at that grocery store? I was like, come on, dude. That was like 15 years ago. And yes, big sale on toilet paper. Oh, yeah, I also worked at Target. Oh, I have a lot of stories. People were always asking me where stuff was in the store, and a lot of times I had a difficult time understanding what they were saying. One time this older lady came up to me, and she just kept saying, red pepper, red pepper, red pepper. I was like, anyway, I found out what she was trying to say was red peppers. She wanted red peppers. Another guy was like, talcum, talcum, talcum powder. Kept saying talcum powder, talcum powder. I found out what he was actually trying to say was taco powder. He wanted the taco seasoning packet. There was another time I was stocking items on the sales floor, and a not very nice woman came up to me looking for something. She was adamant that it was in the store. It wasn't on the shelf, but she wanted me to check in the back. And I was like, I've been stocking this for hours. I know we don't have it in the back. And she was like, go to the back. You're checking. Go to the back. Just go to the back. So I was like, okay, I guess the only way that I'm going to have to deal with this is I'm going to have to go to the back. So I go to the back, and I was like, oh, shit, there's her item on the shelf. But here's where my acting kicked in. I came back out to the floor, and I was like, yeah, we're definitely out of them. I didn't see any back there. And she just, like, quietly walked away. I was like, good job. Had another job at an audio rental store. We rented audio equipment. A guy came in. He wanted to rent some audio equipment. And his name was Astrid. I didn't say it out loud, but inside my head I was like, this guy's name is Ass Turd? Okay. All right. I'm 40 years old. Look at me, 40. And I got out of a long relationship, and it's rough out there. I could tell you that much. It's, as a 40-year-old person, trying to find somebody to date has been rough. And I could tell you that all the dating app is a credit card in between two people trying to fuck. It's like, if I could just get if I could just get to you, and if I don't have to deal with this thing in the center, we could just touch it a little bit. But it doesn't happen. Yeah, there was a pretty long drought with no sex for me. And after a long spell, it was about to go down, okay? And I went to the bathroom, and I had a little conversation with my dick. And it sounded like Jimmy Stewart. I said, yeah, you'll be good now. Real hard, too. Give her a good one. I could do that better, whatever. Whatever, Ryan. And, I also play a little music. I'm actually a lot like Jimi Hendrix. I don't like my own voice. If somebody says there to you 2 times, you're fucked. If somebody's like, there, they normally put their hand on your shoulder, and usually something pretty bad happened if somebody's saying there twice. What do you want to be when you grow up? At some point when I was a kid, there was a group of adults asking kids, what do you guys want to do when you grow up? And I was like, I want to know if I could get a whole bag of fries. And the guy running the show was like, okay, and how about you? Anyone else? The next kid. In grade school, same time period, I ran for class president in grade school. Everyone at that time was asking me, what are your platforms going to be? What are you going to run on, And it was real simple. I said, no coconuts, no butts, no cuts. And if you drink a little bit of water, save some for the whales. I lost. I didn't win. I didn't win the campaign. I lost to a girl named Lyrica. And I always thought that was a really pretty name until it became a name for fibromyalgia medicine. Yeah. And just to wrap up the story, Lyrica doesn't need Lyrica. My eyeballs stink. I'm telling you, my eyes stink. And the reason why I think that is because little flies keep flying into my eyes. I don't know what the fly's thinking, but I could only imagine, like, look at that big juicy eyeball. I'm going to go fly in there and die. And his best friend's like, hey, I'm going to come with you. Let's go die. Perspective can be funny. It can be a really funny thing, perspective. Currently, I've said I had a lot of jobs. Right now, I actually am washing windows day in and day out. Yeah. Anyway, I had a long day. It was a long day in the sun, and I was wrapping up. It was the very last window. And I was finishing up. I put my squeegee down. A little fly went right to the window. I squished the fly into the window. For like a minute, 2 minutes, I was just livid. I was so pissed. I had to like redo this window. But then that's where perspective comes in, because I was like, okay, I'm upset. Meanwhile, he's fucking dead. Something else with perspective I always say I didn't come up with, though, but like there's a really big difference between peeing into the swimming pool and just peeing in the pool. Perspective, baby. Perspective. Oh, geez, the racist jokes. Yeah. I was recently, I almost accidentally did something racist, and a good friend was like, hang on, man. Before you do that, think. Don't you remember that NFL game? The goalpost pylon had a sticker, said stop racism, and I was like, my bad. God, what was I thinking? My first job ever was actually a racist porta potty company. They were called the Ku Klux Klan. Now that brings us to the local jokes. We're already talking a little race here. My neighborhood, I just moved into the Perry district in Spokane. It's a very progressive neighborhood. I actually agree with like all the signs. Everyone seems like they have some sort of political sign in their front yard. And like I said, I agree with everything. I think it's just too bad we have to have signs to like, it's kind of like virtue signaling. For instance, my next door neighbor, he's got a sign in his yard that says no nukes. Like stop the nukes. It's like, who in the neighborhood is making nukes? Who's pro-nuke? Like, what the fuck? There's another sign in the neighborhood. It just says, say gay. Like, just the word say gay. For me, it's like, say uncle. Say it! Say it! And when I'm in my car, I see that sign, I'm like, gay? Gay. I know what it is, though. It's the Texas, or not the Texas. It's the Florida shit. We're not getting into that. That's another special. I know what's actually going on. I'm just making fun of it. So my neighborhood, the house I'm in, it was built in 1909. I'm 6'5". I've hit my head so many times the last like month. Like walking around the house, I'm like, oh gosh, oh boy. Sorry for my language. It really is, though. People, if you don't know, like 100 years ago, people were really small. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to an estate sale. Look at their feet. They had little feet. My bedroom, to go into my bedroom, I have to duck. What else? I was at a barbecue drive-through in Spokane on Sprague. The person at the drive-through window said, would you like to add a tip? Do you want to add 10, 15, or 20%? And I was thinking, this is perfect. I wanted to pay more. I was at the Spokane Army Surplus. After a few minutes of shopping around, finally the guy was like, could I help you find something? And I was like, yes, actually. I'm looking for brass knuckles. And he goes, ooh, brass knuckles are illegal in Washington State. You could actually get jail time. And so I was like, okay, do you have any? Right across the street, the general store has advertised on their marquee, best Carhartt selection in town. And I was just thinking, do you think somebody from the actual Carhartt store drives past that, sees it on their way to work, and is like, oh, too bad. It's always weird when a McDonald's goes out of business. Do you remember that McDonald's at the Garland Theater? What the hell happened to that? Spokane has a lot of gated communities. A lot of gated communities throughout Spokane. And they were built like 40 years ago. So now, these old neighborhoods are just kind of like low-end houses. These gated communities around Spokane, they're kind of funny with all the gates. I look at them, like, are we keeping people in or out? I have just, well, I guess I'll wrap up with the bread joke. Actually, there's no need for the bread joke. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna wrap up with like a little PSA. It's not even funny like the rest of this. I just want to get the word out there, like Bob Barker. If you have pets, like a dog or a cat, and if they eat food out of a bag, and if you leave the bag open, you're just the worst piece of shit. Like to the pet that you're feeding, it's like, oh, I gotta eat the same food every day, and it's gonna be stale. I hate you. You know that oh sounded so good. As long as I'm here, you're gonna get my John Travolta. Oh, Sandy. One more time from the left. Okay, I'm gonna look right in there. Oh, Sandy. That was the worst one. Okay.